Today it might be easy to overlook the small cluster of buildings that is now Clarksburg. However, there was a time when it was a booming community, the third largest in the county. When was that? How did it get started? And what fueled its early growth?
For the answers, we visited town historian Joanne Woodson. Her family's Clarksburg roots go back at least 3 generations.
My family is the Snowden family. My great-grandfather, Tom Snowden, was born here in Clarksburg in 1846. And my grandfather, Marshall, was also born here in Clarksburg in 1877. And of course, my great-grandfather had been farming here in the area. And in 1889, he bought a farm from James Henning Purdom, who was just adjacent to where his farm is now.
Joanne grew up in Kensington, but she always considered Clarksburg her second home. In 1952, she and her husband moved here and later built a house on land given to them by Joanne's uncle. Since then, she's dedicated herself to preserving Clarksburg's history.
The first European settler was William Clark, and he came here from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he came here because this was a trading town with the Indians. He started coming here to Clarksburg in 1735. And of course, his son, John Clark, was really the person that is recognized as being the founder of the town. But they had a trading post first, and then as that grew, then they had the general store, and the town began to grow.
In 1797, John Clark built the original portion of this house using logs. He lived here and ran a general store right across the street in this building. This land was first patented to Michael Dowden, where he built a small hotel. Back then it was known as an ordinary.
Michael Dowden came here from Virginia, and he liked the town because really it was the gateway for all travel from Georgetown going to Frederick. So he bought 40 acres of ground, and in 1752 he was granted a pattern to build Dowden's Ordinary. And of course, Dowden's Ordinary was a stopover place for all of the traffic that was coming through on the Great Road.
Dowden's Ordinary hosted General George Washington, British General Edward Braddock, and President-elect Andrew Jackson. Eventually, the building fell into disrepair and no longer exists today. This boulder was erected to commemorate it. The early 1800s was a period of tremendous growth for Clarksburg. Imagine the streetscape filled with homes and businesses of all kinds.
At that time, got 2 hotels, and we had 4 stores. There was a wheelwright shop, there was a tannery, a leather shop, and just about 10 different services were available for people that passed through.
This quilt was made in 1820 by Sarah Clark Wilson, daughter of John Clark. Her husband, William Wilson, took over the management of her father's store in 1802. This 1817 inventory shows that you could purchase just about anything at Clark's store. By 1842, Clarksburg was so populated that it could support its own brass band. This desk was made right here in Clarksburg. Wheelwright C.T. Anderson created it in 1896, probably using the wood he obtained from the nearby sawmills. In 1891, local physician Dr. Dietz built this Victorian home near the site of Dowden's Ordinary. Known as Hammer Hill, the land got its name from the hammering sounds that emanated from the nearby blacksmith's shop. But by that time, Clarksburg's fortunes had begun to change when the B&O Railroad opened a stop in Boyd's in 1879. As a result, much of the commerce shifted away from Clarksburg. However, from the beginning, farming was a way of life here, and it continued to sustain Clarksburg throughout the 20th century.